What do you say, everybody? And welcome to WNSP. It's time for Monday Quarterback. Mick Gillispie and Jake Coker. We do this every Monday, at least through football season, where we talk Alabama football, look back on the game, and really assess what's going on around the program. And for Alabama, their playoff and national championship hopes ended last night really yesterday, when the College Football Playoff Committee selected SMU to be in the college football playoff over Alabama. And we're going to talk about why I felt like that was the wrong decision, and then kind of look at this college football playoff field and get into exactly what we're looking at right now and why it isn't really a good idea for the SEC to be involved in this when you look at the field and the seeding of the field. Nothing could be more disappointing than to get beat out by a team that really had no quality wins all year. And it was, kind of one of those things where I really expected Alabama to be in the field. And I figured it would come down to basically just dollars and cents, right? I mean, Bama's a big brand. Everybody would want to see Alabama, Penn State, Alabama, Notre Dame, however that played out. And instead, the committee left Alabama out and put SMU in, a team that is not watched often, the most unwatched team in the ACC, and also a team that's been, in a power conference for 1 year and really didn't play a great schedule this season. They had their quality wins were teams like Louisville and Pitt, and you compare that to what you go through in the SEC, and beating Georgia and at LSU and at Wisconsin. And, Missouri turned out to be a really good team. South Carolina was a quality win. Even beating Auburn's better than the teams that, most of the teams that were beaten by SMU. And then, for them to lose their conference championship game. So they played two quality opponents, them and BYU, and they lost both of those games. But it felt like it was more politics, basically working to leave Alabama out than it was to put SMU in. And Bama had them beat in a lot of categories, but had one more loss. And obviously playing in the championship game, SMU played one more game in the regular season. But the debate is, and when you look at the field, it's really not that good. I mean, as a college football fan, you could put a better 12-team tournament together with the teams in the SEC. And I don't think that's, I really don't think that is saying a whole lot. I mean, you're talking about Arizona State and Boise State getting buys in this. And I mean, to think that Arizona State has a bye in a college football playoff, and you look at their schedule, Wyoming and Mississippi State, they barely got by Mississippi State, Texas State, Kansas, Utah, Oklahoma State, which wasn't good, Central Florida, Kansas State, BYU, Arizona, Iowa State. I mean, they're okay teams, but there's not that marquee matchup in their conference because all of the big teams left. And it's kind of a conference of misfits. And that isn't comparable to what Alabama, what South Carolina played, what Ole Miss played at all. I mean, it's just not. And for somehow they have a bye. And then the one that's even more laughable is that Boise got a bye. They lost to Oregon, but their wins are Georgia Southern, Portland State, Washington State, Utah State, Hawaii, UNLV, San Diego State, Nevada, San Jose State, Wyoming, Oregon State, and UNLV. I mean, Alabama would be favored double digits against every team on the schedule. And, for that to be a team that gets a bye and that gets in over Alabama, who played really a tough schedule this year, one of the toughest, a top 15 schedule. It's kind of like you look at this tournament and you start to realize that this tournament really was put together as charity for the programs that don't play a tough enough schedule and don't have the resources or the players to be at the elite level. Some of the other teams that got in, Indiana, which they went 11-1. Somehow they went through their entire conference and didn't play, but Ohio State as far as the power teams in their conference. FIU, Western Illinois, UCLA, Charlotte, Maryland, Northwestern, Nebraska, Washington, Michigan State, Michigan. They got hammered by Ohio State, the only team on there with a number next to their name, 38-15, and then Purdue, who's awful, 0-9 and 1-11. So, and this is a team that got in and they never even questioned the strength of schedule. And I think that, Alabama's athletic director, Greg Byrne, is questioning now why Alabama would go out and play non-conference schedule that matters. Why go to Wisconsin? Why play Florida State next year? Why play Wisconsin next year? Why play Notre Dame? Why play Ohio State? Why play anybody outside of the conference, which is already very tough? And then the best one is SMU, who got in over Alabama with wins over Nevada, Houston Christian. They lost to BYU, TCU, Florida State, Louisville, which is one of their marquee wins, Stanford, Duke, Pitt, another one of their marquee wins, Boston College, Virginia, Cal, and then they lost to Clemson. And then yet they still get in. And really what the debate, I guess, has to be is, well, we don't want to penalize teams for losing their conference championship game. But if you're a team that has no quality wins, then the conference championship game is the place you go to get a quality win. And I guess getting beat in a close game counts more than than winning, or as much as winning. And then you look at the rest of the field, and the SEC got Tennessee in, and they're on the road at Ohio State. They got Georgia in, and they got Texas in. And Texas is hosting Clemson. And Clemson, even though they didn't have a great year, they won their conference tournament, so they end up getting in. But yeah, I mean, look, it's disappointing. It's disappointing for Alabama. Of course, they could have gotten in, and they really, had fate in their own hands. Not only would they have gotten in, but they could have been in the conference championship game. And after watching Georgia and Texas struggle against each other, you look at it and go, hey, Alabama on a good day beats both of those teams. But that's not what happened. And so, Bama lost that game to Oklahoma, and it cost them dearly. So that loss, obviously losing to Vandy and then at Tennessee, 3 losses was enough to keep them out. If SMU had won their conference championship game, Bama would have been in. But I honestly, I just don't think to me, it shouldn't matter a whole lot. I think that either way I look at it, that this should be about the best players, and that's not what we're getting. This should be about the teams that are the best teams, and we've turned it into the most deserving teams. And it's like, well, hey, so-and-so had a great season, but what about South Carolina? They beat Clemson. They played a much tougher schedule than those 4 teams that we just talked about. Bama played a tougher schedule. Ole Miss played a tougher schedule. So that basically what they're going to have to do is expand the playoff. And the drop-off for Alabama is so big. I mean, you go from, playing in the college football playoff to, to playing in a bowl game that really is a meaningless bowl game. And college football has issues now because these bowl games are slotted so far down. And, between the transfer portal and opt-outs, it's going to be really interesting to see what team actually shows up when Bama plays at the ReliQuest Bowl. I hope I said that right, against Michigan, 11 a.m. on Tuesday, December 31st. What's that going to look like? So, That's where Alabama ended up. Thank goodness they didn't go to the Cheez-It Bowl. South Carolina went there to play Illinois, but I mean, at least they're playing Michigan, which will be a lot of fun. I mean, who wants to go watch Illinois? I mean, feel bad for the Gator Bowl. Ole Miss gets to play Duke. I mean, the SEC could put together a 12-team playoff that is just as good or better than what we're seeing in this college football playoff. There's just so many bad teams in here, and we wanted to expand the playoff, but I don't feel like there's a whole lot of marquee games that I'm excited about seeing. I mean, Notre Dame against Indiana. I mean, is that a marquee game? I mean, I guess the Clemson Texas game should be interesting. Clemson doesn't belong in, but they got in. They backed into the conference tournament and then beat an SMU team that's not any good. SMU's going to play in Happy Valley against Penn State. Penn State's an 8.5-point favorite. Bama had been in that game, it'd probably be about an even, and it would be a much bigger game. Indiana is an 8-point dog going to Notre Dame. So you got 8, 8.5, 7, and 11. That's your first round that's your first round games point spreads. Texas by 11 over Clemson, Ohio State 7 over Tennessee, and then SMU, who had to get in there from this field and all the politics, 8.5-point dog, and then Indiana's an 8-point dog at Notre Dame. And the playoff committee patting themselves on the back for doing a great job. They've penalized teams for going out and playing in tough conferences, and they've penalized teams for going out there and playing tough schedules. And I think it sets a precedent that if I'm Alabama and I'm Greg Byrne, that I'm saying to myself, I want to make a showing out of this, because him and Greg Sankey right now are not very popular amongst fans of the SEC. They're just not. But you knew when they expanded it that it wasn't about getting the best teams in. It was about appeasing a lot of these conferences where you go through. We went through it where they're not playing anybody, and really realistically, they're all huge underdogs, and we wanted to get them into the playoffs so badly we didn't really care how we did it. All right, when we come back, we're going to talk more about the college football playoff and Alabama. Transfer portal is open and more. All that right here on Monday Quarterback, hanging out with you on WNSP. More coming up right after this. Welcome back to Monday Quarterback here on WNSP. Mick Gillispie with Jake Coker, riding solo on this Monday so far. But great to have you guys with us as we talk Alabama football. Let me remind you that our show is presented by Sticks Tractor and Tree Service. That's in Robertsdale. Those guys are fantastic. And I tell you what, they have a bunch of different services that they can help you with: land clearing, excavating, mulching, tractor work, demolition, site prep. They do it all. We needed them at our house to help us get rid of some what we felt were dangerous water oaks that were in our backyard, and we had a lot of them, and we wanted them out. There was one that was really close to our house. With all the hurricanes out in the Gulf, you never know when they're going to come, and it was just kind of one of those things that was always bothering me. And when they came in, they got rid of the tree. They got rid of a bunch of trees. So we're going to start over again. And they did it. They cleaned up. They brought in this giant green machine, hooked into the tree, pulled it down, took it, didn't fall on my house. Everybody left safe, and they were affordable. So find out for yourself if you're looking for some help in this business. If you're worried about trees, you need to give these guys a call, 251-367-1081 over at Sticks Tractor and Tree. Hunter and his guys will take good care of you. I promise that. Just go get a quote. They have day rate for people that have a lot of work to do, that do as much as they can get done in that day for that rate. And they do a great job. They cleaned up. Place looks great. And all the trees are gone. All right, guys, talking about the college football playoff, Alabama left out. Greg Byrne, the athletic director, basically put a statement out, disappointed with the outcome, and we felt we were one of the 12 best teams in the country. We had an extremely challenging schedule and recognized that there were two games in particular that we did not perform as well as we should have. They went on to talk about we need to assess how many P4 non-conference games make sense in the future. And it basically said, that they look forward to the opportunity in their bowl game in Tampa, right? That's the big question to me moving forward for all of these teams is Alabama ended up ahead of SMU in the AP poll and in the coaches poll. And the College Football Playoff Committee put SMU ahead of Alabama basically because of an external pressure. I mean, there's no way that Alabama would probably be about a 10-point favorite over SMU. So it's not like SMU and Alabama were even that even. They weren't. And SMU had no wins over quality teams that, the winning record, the record of the teams that they played wasn't that great. They played an awful strength of schedule. They had a lot of off weeks. And then when they got to their conference championship game, they weren't prepared in the first half. They got back in it, and then they couldn't tackle at the end of the game, and they let Clemson kick a field goal to beat them. But the bottom line is that the ACC is just not a good conference, and they don't deserve to have two teams in any college football playoff. They just don't. But when they started this playoff format, we thought that it was going to be one of those things where we're going to get the best teams in, and it's going to be a lot of fun, like to see the teams that you feel like you want to see in this tournament. I didn't know that what this thing was all about was putting in the teams that play the weak schedules, and we're not going to hold them accountable for that. And then we're going to give buys to some of these conferences that are garbage, that aren't any good. And so we've got Boise State and Arizona State, two of the weakest teams in the entire field that don't even have to play the first round. That to me is crazy. But the conferences have a lot of power when it comes to putting this kind of thing together. And it is what it is. We'll see how it turns out. Maybe it'll be a little more entertaining than I'm anticipating. But just kind of when I saw the teams that were getting the buys, I thought, man, this is not what I was expecting at all. Just not. So, for Alabama, it kind of feels a lot like when Ryan Williams' touchdown got taken away in that game against Oklahoma. Like there's a lot you can do about it, but it feels like they were robbed. Really feel like they belonged in the tournament field. But it's kind of crazy watching yesterday. Vegas had SMU as a favorite to get in. I wonder who tells them that stuff, because looking at the body of work, I was surprised by that. And then as the day went on, I was like, man, Vegas just knows their stuff, man. Like they've got sources. And they were right, and I was definitely wrong. So the next question is, what is Alabama looking at as far as the transfer portal goes? And you're seeing some guys getting the transfer portal, and who knows? I mean, Kendrick Law, wide receiver, transfer portal. Caleb Odom, remember, he had tweeted during the season, talking about not getting the ball. He's transferring. So a couple wide receivers leaving. Miles McVay, offensive lineman, transferring out. This is just going to continue, but you're also going to see a lot of guys transfer in as well. And I think that for Alabama and Kalen DeBoer, they're going to be really trying to find players that they feel like match their style and their system. And so I'm wondering, and it's hard to really to know. I mean, because, a lot of that stuff's kind of quiet, but, how many of these guys are being told, hey, you know what? We really appreciate you, but, you might find a better fit somewhere else. And last year when he got the job, remember, I mean, he didn't really have a full opportunity in the transfer portal. I mean, a bunch of transfers left when Nick Saban did, but the portal was shut. So he's had an opportunity to go through a season with some of these guys and see what they're all about. Hey, it's Mick Gillispie, host of the Bama Tailgate Show, and also right here on Monday Quarterback, WNSP, talking Alabama football. We'll get back into it more after this. More of Monday Quarterback on WNSP coming up. Hope you're having a great Monday, and roll tide, everybody. Don't forget, newlifeart.com. Bama Tailgate is your promo code, 20% off. Take advantage of it. Roll tide. We'll be right back. Back on Monday Quarterback here on WNSP. Thanks for hanging out with us and appreciate it. Always great to talk Alabama football on a Monday. Final show for a while. The season is all but over. One game left, and that will be New Year's against Michigan. So Alabama plays Michigan. Mick Gillispie, Jake Coker. Jake on assignment. Let's talk about Bama's game after missing the playoff. The consolation prize is the ReliQuest Bowl in Tampa. And honestly, it's the old Outback Bowl, but it's in Tampa, New Year's Day, or excuse me, New Year's Eve, December 31st, 11 a.m. against Michigan. So Bama played Michigan last year in the Rose Bowl, played them a few years ago, and now they'll play them again. Bama 9-3, and Michigan is 7-5, but they did beat Ohio State to end the season. And so I kind of liked it. I mean, compared to the other options, which would have been playing Duke or Illinois, much better matchup for, I think, both teams. If you're going to be in one of these games, you might as well play a team that you want to watch it, Bama play. And I can't imagine a lot of people traveling to go see Alabama play Illinois or Alabama play Duke. And the college football playoff is going to have to expand because the level of excitement for these bowl games is just so low that, it's hard to get really fired up about playing 7-5 Michigan in Tampa on New Year's Day, when you have a team that should be in the college football playoff. But but we'll find, we'll see what happens. I mean, think the world will look a lot different in college football by then. You'll be into the college football playoff, and and for Alabama, I think you use this bowl game as an opportunity to start working on next year. Would it be great to win 10 games? Sure. But is winning or losing this bowl game going to matter at all? No. You're going to figure out, what you're doing at the quarterback position. It's an opportunity to work with the guys that are going to be there. I think if I was Kalen DeBoer, I would probably urge some of the players that are going to opt out and go to the NFL to do that, or to opt out to get ready for the NFL. The days of like, hey, we all want to be there to take care of this and finish the season strong. To me, I just don't know that that's it. I think that all of it's about trying to build for the next year. Now, I could be totally wrong on that, but that's just kind of my take on this. So, as interesting as it is, to play Michigan and Tampa, I think you're kind of like, looking at this as a way to build your program. So, anyway, other games of interest, talking about, teams that you may want to watch. December 14th, South Alabama plays Western Michigan in the Veterans Bowl. That's, in the Crampton Bowl, Montgomery. That's 9:00 on ESPN. So congratulations to them for getting in. I think that'll be a game locally that a lot of us will have some interest in. And I love the bowl schedule. Look, I mean, the Florida Gators and Tulane play Raymond James Stadium, same place Bama's playing on Friday, December 20th. That's in the Union Home Mortgage Gasparilla Bowl. So that'll be fun. A lot of name there to talk about. That just rolls off the tongue, right? Vanderbilt and Georgia Tech in the Birmingham Bowl. So Vandy, congratulations. That's an interesting game. Georgia Tech beat Miami. Vanderbilt beat Alabama. Both teams kind of feel like they're on an upswing. Protective Stadium in Birmingham, 3:30 on December 27th. So right after Christmas, the Oklahoma Sooners and Navy play in the Lockheed Martin Armed Forces Bowl. That's again on December 27th. The Liberty Bowl this year, Texas Tech versus Arkansas. That is December 27th at 7 o'clock. And then Texas A&M and Southern Cal play in the SRS Distribution Las Vegas Bowl. And that is 10:30 p.m. So I honestly, that's an interesting matchup there. People were wondering who's going to be in the Pop-Tart Bowl this year, where you can eat the mascot at the end. Iowa State and Miami on December 28th. So, another one. But, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how many of these teams have players opt out. BYU and Colorado play in San Antonio, the Alamo Bowl. That one with Coach Prime, December 28th. Missouri plays Iowa in the Music City Bowl, December 30th, 2:30, Nissan Stadium. Interesting matchup. And then on New Year's Day, Bama and Michigan, talked about that. South Carolina and Iowa in the Cheez-It Bowl at 3 o'clock. Baylor and LSU play in the Kinder's Texas Bowl, 3:30 on New Year's Eve, or December 30th. Yeah, no, that's New Year's Eve, yeah, the 31st. And then January 2nd, Duke and Ole Miss in the Gator Bowl. And then, of course, the college football playoffs. That's just the kind of a run through of of what to expect with these bowl games, kind of where things are. But I don't know. None of these games really fire me up. For years, I was all about the college football playoff, thinking, well, really, I was all about the regular season being the college football playoff, right? I always thought, well, what makes college football different is that the regular season is so good, right? And that's why we watch. I mean, we love the regular season. But then something happened. They started this playoff, and this playoff really has changed that. And now I feel like, to make all of these bowl games more interesting, that if you make a bowl game, you probably should just make the college football playoff. And that the field just is, I don't know. I'd probably go all the way up to 32 teams, kind of make it a big tournament like high school football in the state of Alabama. And we're going to get some bad games at the beginning. Yeah, you do. Probably not a lot of upsets, but I think it's a lot better than rewarding teams that play these light schedules to and putting them in over teams that are better, that have had played and played tough games. And honestly, this format doesn't make sense for the SEC. It's bad for us. Anyway, we'll take a break and we'll come back. Final segment of Monday Quarterback right after this. Final segment of Monday Quarterback. And again, appreciate all of you guys for hanging out with us this football season right here on WNSP. Don't forget the Bama Tailgate Show with Jay Coker and Mick Gillispie will be on game day. So when Bama plays on New Year's Eve, we'll be on from 9 to 11. At least that's the game plan. So Bama will take on Michigan to finish up the season on December 31st. So that's it. After that, and it'll be next year in Alabama. We'll try to get back into the college football playoff under Coach DeBoer. This program with a lot of soul searching to do between now and then. And, I saw Coach Saban on ESPN right after it was announced that SMU was getting in. And he talked about the committee basically making programs think twice about going out and scheduling games outside of the conference, because it's obvious that that they're going to weigh beating less than good opponents over losing to teams when you go out and play a challenging schedule. And it's more than just than who you lose to. It's the fact that you go out there and play against great opponents, and it's a physical game, so you may win uh, the game against the good team, but then you feel the repercussions of it with the way that your team's able to bounce back. That's why playing in the SEC is so tough. That's why playing, a challenging schedule isn't easy. So, we'll see how that kind of turns out, but it would definitely put me in a spot as an athletic director where I'd think twice about going out and playing, the likes of the good teams, when you could go and schedule some of the teams that are in this very tournament and they'd be easy wins. You could beat Indiana, you could beat SMU, you could beat Arizona State. All these teams are very beatable for the teams in the SEC that didn't make the tournament. And a lot of it comes down to scheduling and, how willing you are to go out and do that when you realize now that, that there's no reward for going out there and playing the tough schedule. At least not yet. Now, I think they're going to expand this tournament. They need to, and just put everybody in, and then, that be it. And I mean, everybody, I mean, the good teams, having a spot. I'd rather have one bad team in that maybe doesn't deserve it than have, 3, 4, 5 good teams that belong in and aren't going to get an opportunity. So I think that's kind of how things are going to go with this moving forward. But yeah, we've really enjoyed being on here. Jake and I do a podcast on covercrimson.com. Besides the Tailgate show on the Bama Tailgate YouTube channel, and then on here, we are also on covercrimson.com. Cover Crimson on YouTube. We do a show called Elephant in the Room twice a week. So you can also catch us on there, where we talk a lot, not just football, but a lot of other things we'll get into on that show as well. And, just a myriad of different issues and topics. And because we both live down here, a lot of that stuff are things that we get into here on the coast. So, so make sure that you stay in touch with us there. But we appreciate everybody at the station for being really great to work with. Tim and Lee and Michael and all those guys. We appreciate them so much. It's really been a great experience too, talking with you guys every Monday about college football and and all the things going on around Alabama. Earlier in the week, Bama, with a big success in recruiting, they ended up with the number 2 early signing class. And, and we're kind of, we shouldn't really be surprised, a lot of great help on the offensive line, some guys in the secondary. And it really proved that Coach DeBoer and his staff are going to be able to follow in Nick Saban's shoes and get out there and recruit. And we didn't know what that was going to look like. Would Alabama be able to go out there and recruit at that level? And I think the answer to that is yes, that they're not going to lose in that aspect. Now, Bama's going to have to step up in the NIL game. I think that's one of the areas where Nick Saban really lacked before his time ended at Alabama. So, and I guess it really just maybe his coaching time ended, but even with, I mean, I'm not saying Alabama is, doesn't have NIL, but they could definitely use more when you get into the way that this whole thing works. You're going to need resources until and maybe hopefully someday they'll figure out a way to, to have rules with this NIL. But yeah, Coach DeBoer and his staff did an excellent job of going out there and bringing in some not top-notch talent to the program. And recruiting is going to continue. It's, Bama ended up behind Texas and ahead of Oregon in the, in the team rankings. They ended up signing Keelan Russell, 5-star quarterback out of Duncanville, Texas. It's a big win. They actually wrestled him away from SMU, and he was a commit there, and then ended up coming to Bama. Number 2 national player, number 2 at quarterback, and he comes to Alabama. Some really great offensive linemen, and including another 5-star, Michael Carroll, who Bama battled right down to the end with teams like Colorado to get. But the number 14 national player and the top offensive lineman, inside lineman at his position. You got Dijon Lee, another 5-star from Mission Viejo, California, cornerback. He is another one that's one of the top 25 players in the country, national number 23. number 4 at his position, the number 2 player in California. And then another guy on the offensive line, Jackson Lloyd, worth talking about, who is a 4-star, 33rd ranked player nationally. A.K. Deer out of Quitman, Mississippi, number 52 national player, 4-star, number 2 running back in the country. But you go down the line, and Alabama did an excellent job on signing day of bringing in another great class. So I think that we're pretty excited about the direction of the program under Coach DeBoer. But I think that, just kind of, evaluating where we are right now as far as the season goes, the entire season, 9-3 record. They beat Auburn, they beat LSU, they lost to Tennessee, a couple of losses that we really haven't seen in a long time as far as losing to unranked teams, Oklahoma and Vanderbilt, and it kept them out of the college football playoff. I thought that if I was grading Alabama and Coach DeBoer, I would probably give them a B- on the season. I think beating Auburn is a big deal. Winning the Iron Bowl, even if it's not a great Auburn team, that is a very difficult game. And I think it's one of those games where you, in this state, you got to win. And, and that gave you the 9th win. It's a shame. I still think that Alabama deserved to be in the college football playoff. But obviously they didn't have the push to get them in like last year. And what they have to do is get off the bubble and start getting directly in. Remember, Georgia last year was that team that was left out, probably the best team that wasn't in the college football playoff. Clearly, Bama, the best team, not in this year. And, and Georgia came back, won the SEC and qualified. If Bama plays against Oklahoma like they should have, they're in the SEC championship game. I think they win that game, and then they don't have a whole lot to worry about. I think that the strengths of the program under Coach DeBoer is that he's got a modern style. I think that the players really like him. They relate to him. They're having fun. Listening to what Jalen Milroe said about playing for him, how much he loved him, how much he made it fun to show up every day. I think that's a big deal, and I think that's an advancement and I'm taking that from my friend Coach Smook, but saying that it's an advanced style, yelling at guys like Coach Saban. I don't know that works anymore. I think that things are different now because they just are. It's a different world, and and jumping on guys and yelling at them just doesn't work. It's a different type of player, and so Coach DeBoer's style, I think, is going to work for the long haul in Tuscaloosa. And I think that that he's going to be well received. It already is happening. Recruiting right where it needs to be, and that's a good thing. Now, the bad thing and the knock that I have is discipline. Got to be disciplined. Got to do a better job of discipline. And I think that translates into the losses that Alabama had. 2 really winnable games in Tennessee, one in Nashville and one in Knoxville, and then to absolutely show up flat against Oklahoma. Or maybe Oklahoma was stealing Alabama's signs, but not having any adjustment, not being ready to go in that capacity, knowing what plays Bama was going to run before they ran them, which is what there's a lot of speculation on that as well. You got to know that that's a possibility when you play Will Venables. That's kind of his formula. And they obviously weren't. So you got to be disciplined. Some of the penalties that Alabama had, I know Kendrick Law is transferring. He had one of the stupidest penalties that I think I've ever seen an Alabama player have in the Tennessee game, where he gets a 15-yard penalty and basically costs us the game and at the end. And, Kobe Prentice transferring. DeBoer's a wide receivers type guy. And if for these guys to leave, I think he's just got to get players that kind of match what he's looking for. They had an opportunity to be difference makers this year, and they weren't good enough to do that. So go out and find somebody else. But I think that the discipline factor is something that Alabama is going to have to step up and make happen. It's going to have to be better in that area of discipline, or they're going to continue to struggle in big games, or even in games that you're supposed to win. And that's an area where they're going to have to really improve next year. I look for Bama to clean up in the transfer portal. I think that the school has a lot to offer. I think that the coaching staff brings a lot to the table. I think Coach DeBoer knows what he wants, knows what he needs, and that he's going to go out there and get it. when he was at Washington, did an excellent job at the transfer portal. And he's got to find players that are able to play under his type of system, whether that be what he does on the field or that may be the way that he conducts himself off the field. Having personalities that match what he's looking for is going to make a big difference for him. So B- for me for Coach DeBoer in his first season, but have enjoyed him as a person. And I'll tell you, one of the highlights of this season that I'll never forget, my late best friend, Big Sexy Elmo on the Bama Tailgate channel, him and I interviewing Coach DeBoer, having a great time. Coach DeBoer with an awesome sense of humor. And the fact that he took the time for us meant a lot to me. And that was a couple weeks before Brett had a heart attack and passed away. So I'll never forget that. And there's always going to be a part of me that's going to appreciate Coach DeBoer for doing that. So in the football side, he's a great man. All right. Thank you guys for hanging out. It's been fun talking football with you each week. Jake Coker, we'll talk to you guys again soon. Make sure you check us out on the Bama Tailgate channel and on Cover Crimson. And until then, hey, roll tide, everybody. I'm Mick Gillispie, and we will talk to you guys again real soon.